Voltaire, born November 21, 1694 to May 30, 1778, formerly known as François-Marie Arouet, was a French thinker, philosopher, and writer in the Enlightenment age, and the recognized leader of the Enlightenment movement and mentor. Not only did he have outstanding achievements in philosophy, he was also famous for his defense of civil liberties, especially freedom of belief and judicial justice. Despite the harsh censorship of his time, Voltaire openly supported social reform. His life experiences were colorful and talented, and he had a profound impact on the development of French literature and philosophy. Below are some of his quotes and Voltaire's stories. Quotations from Voltaire. Common sense is not common. We should respect the living, but we only owe the dead the truth. Everyone feels guilty for all the good deeds he has not done. Judge a man's questions, not his answers. No problem can withstand the attack of sustained thinking. Life is full of thorns, and I know no other remedy than to move quickly through them. The longer we dwell on our misfortunes, the greater their power to harm us. The art of medicine consists in amusing the sick, while nature cures the disease. Rather risk saving a guilty person than condemning an innocent person. It is not enough to see and understand the beauty of a piece. We have to feel it and be affected by it. What is tolerance? It is a human consequence. We are all made of frailties and mistakes. Let us forgive each other our follies. This is the first law of nature. Tears are the silent language of sadness. Man is free at the moment he wishes. Each player must accept the cards life deals him or her, but once dealt, he or she alone must decide how to play them to win the game. People hate a person they call greedy just because they get nothing from him. We must cultivate our own gardens. When man was placed in the Garden of Eden, he was placed there so that he should work, which proves that man was not made for rest. If God did not exist, it would be necessary to invent him. Public opinion causes more trouble on this little earth than plagues or earthquakes. The best is the enemy of good. We are all full of weaknesses and mistakes. Let us forgive each other our follies. This is the first law of nature. My life is a struggle. If God created us in his own image, we receive more than just reward. Everything was fine today. That was our illusion. The ancient Romans built their greatest architectural masterpieces, their amphitheaters, for beasts to fight. Let us read, let us dance. These two amusements can never do any harm to the world. Nothing would be more irksome than eating and drinking, if God had not made them a pleasure and a necessity. The date of divorce may be almost the same as the date of marriage. However, I believe marriage is a few weeks older. Some truths are not for everyone, nor are they for all times superfluous. It is very necessary. Use, don't abuse. Abstinence and excess neither make a man happy. Illusion is the first of all pleasures. It is difficult to free fools from the shackles of their reverence. Those who can make you believe absurdities can make you commit atrocities. God has given us the gift of life. It is our responsibility to give ourselves the gift of living well. Faith consists in believing when faith exceeds the power of reason. Appreciation is a wonderful thing. It makes the excellence of others our own. The Holy Roman Empire was neither holy nor Roman nor an empire. Doubt is not a pleasant condition, but certainty is absurd. Optimism is the madness to insist that everything will be okay when we are miserable. Killing is prohibited, therefore, all murderers are punished unless they kill in large numbers and sound the trumpet. I have never prayed to God once, a very brief prayer, Lord, make my enemies ridiculous. God gave it. Everyone follows the same religion when it comes to money matters. God is not on the side of the big camp, but on the side of those who shoot best. Conquering is not enough, one must learn to seduce. Think for yourselves and let others enjoy the privilege of doing the same. Injustice ultimately produces independence. To hold a pen is to fight. Perfection is achieved through degrees of slowness, it requires the hand of time. Prejudice is something fools use to reason. One of the great uses of words is to hide our thoughts. Sadly, to be a good patriot, you have to be someone else's enemy. Ears are the gateway to the soul. Superstition is to religion what astrology is to astronomy, the crazy daughter of a wise mother. These daughters have ruled the earth for too long. Is there anyone smart enough to learn from other people's experiences? When there is a heart murmur, the mouth listens poorly. Husbands who decide to surprise their wives often surprise themselves quite a bit. Welcome to subscribe to my channel. Luck and love are with you. Voltaire's story. Voltaire was born into a wealthy middle-class family in Paris, the youngest of 5 children. His father, François Drouet, was a legal notary and later clerk of the audit court. His mother, Marie Marguerite Dumas, came from a noble family in the Poitou province. Voltaire was educated at the Jesuits in Paris and then at the Lycée Louis the Great. It is said that Voltaire was very smart. He could recite literary classics at the age of 3 and compose poetry at the age of 12. In high school, Voltaire mastered Latin and Greek, and later became proficient in Italian, Spanish, and English. Studied law from 1711 to 1713. Before devoting himself to literature, Voltaire also worked as a secretary for the French ambassador to the Netherlands and fell in love with a French woman. The two's plan to elope was discovered by Voltaire's father, who forced him to return home. In fact, Voltaire had a desire to study literature after graduating from high school, but his father wanted him to study law. Voltaire pretended to work as a lawyer's assistant in Paris, but actually spent most of his time writing satirical poems. This incident was soon discovered by his father, who sent him to the provinces outside the Paris area to study law. However, Voltaire persisted in writing essays and conducting historical research that was not particularly textual. At that time, the French absolutist monarchy was harboring a profound crisis. Voltaire served for a period as secretary of an embassy abroad and as secretary of a court. He was in aristocratic circles. With the sensitivity of a poet, he often criticized fashion and commented on government affairs. He attracted attention with his sharp words and witty remarks. Therefore, he was constantly persecuted by the feudal autocratic rulers. In 1715, Voltaire wrote a poem satirizing the then regent, the Duke of Orleans, who was exiled to Surrey. In 1717, he was thrown into the Bastille and imprisoned for 11 months for writing satirical poems alluding to the promiscuous life in the court. While in prison, Voltaire completed his first play, Oedipus Rex, about the regency of Louis XV, Philip II. In this work, he used Voltaire as a pen name for the first time, which came from the name of a castle in his hometown in southern France. In the autumn of 1718, not long after his release from prison, Oedipus Rex was staged in Paris and caused a sensation, and Voltaire won the title of the best poet in France. In 1726, Voltaire was insulted and falsely accused by the nobleman de Rohan, and was once again thrown into the Bastille for a year. After his release from prison, Voltaire was deported and went into exile in England. Voltaire, who was in exile in England, entered a new period of life. He was very interested in local politics, society, religion, science, and other conditions. In 1729, with the tacit approval of King Louis XV of France, Voltaire returned to France. In the following years, he successively completed and published the tragedies Brut, Zaire, and the historical work History of Charles XII. In 1734, Voltaire officially published the Philosophical Correspondence, promoting the achievements of the British reform and criticizing the French autocratic government. The collection of letters was banned immediately after publication, and the Paris court ordered the author's arrest. He fled to his girlfriend, the Marquise de Châtelet's estate in the village of Sirette, and lived in seclusion for 15 years. During this period, he was once appointed as a historian by the court, and was elected as a member of the Royal Society in 1743 and an academician of the French Academy in 1746. The quiet life of seclusion allowed Voltaire to give full play to his talents and wrote many epics, tragedies, and historical and philosophical works, such as the philosophical and scientific works Metaphysics and Newton's Principles of Philosophy, the drama The Death of Caesar, Muhammad, the Son of the Libertine, Harop, the philosophical novel Tzaddik, etc. The publication of these works made Voltaire famous. In addition to philosophical discussions, they set up a physics laboratory in the same house and studied Newton's mathematical principles of natural philosophy together. The Marquise de Châtelet was the first to translate principles of natural philosophy from Latin to French. People. In 1749, the Marquise de Châtelet died in childbirth. Voltaire briefly returned to Paris. In 1750, Voltaire, who wanted to make a difference in politics, was invited to Berlin by King Frederick II of Prussia, who had admired him for a long time. He got a good position as a court literary attendant and good treatment. After leaving Prussia, Voltaire bought property and settled in a place called Ferney on the border between France and Geneva. After that, he devoted himself wholeheartedly to the fiery Enlightenment movement. On the one hand, he wrote and published a large number of pamphlets under pseudonyms, lashing out at the Catholic Church and the Protestant religious persecution and the autocratic government's crimes of disregarding human lives. On the other hand, he enthusiastically supported the struggles of the younger generation of Enlightenment thinkers, especially the encyclopedists, and actively wrote entries for them. The Philosophical Dictionary is a compilation of philosophical entries he wrote for the encyclopedia. At the same time, in addition to continuing to create dramatic works, he also completed historical works such as Russia under Peter the Great and parliamentary history, as well as philosophical novels such as Candide and The Innocent Man. Voltaire's unremitting struggle promoted the vigorous development of the Enlightenment movement, and he was also revered as Abbot Fernet. On February 10, 1778, the 83-year-old Voltaire returned to Paris after an absence of 29 years and was warmly welcomed by the people. This also became the most glorious peak of Voltaire's life development. Soon he fell ill and died in the same year. Before his death, Voltaire made instructions for his funeral: half of the coffin would be buried in the church and half outside the church. This means that if God lets him go to heaven, he can go to heaven from the church. If God lets him go to hell, he can sneak away quietly from the other end of the coffin. Voltaire's coffin was permanently placed in the Pantheon by the people of Paris, who affectionately called him the Prince of Spirits. Voltaire was a champion of enlightenment, fighting for freedom of thought and speech throughout his life, and living an independent life relying on his pen. Voltaire's name represents not a person, but an entire era. Victor Hugo.